every so often I get offered things to review for the channel that 9 times out of 10 are video game related products, which is fine, right? Because I create video game related content. And then other times I get offered stuff from companies that obviously have never even watched any of my content. They just see that I've got over 100,000 subscribers and therefore that's big enough to offer me some free yoga pants. It's always quite odd when I get things like that, and no, I didn't accept the yoga offer, but I did accept the ARMPAL offer. Yeah, this is rather odd. It's seriously cool, but odd, sure. And before we go ahead, let's just get transparent here, guys. All I got was the ARMPAL. It's simply an honest review from a guy who likes to spend his downtime building Lego and Labo related things with his son, and this just seemed like a great next step. The company that sent this to me only asked that I give an honest review of this product, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do. So the ARMPAL, the world's first 3D wooden assembly tabletop game according to the video, is incredibly impressive. That trailer for the product explains that it's for any age and that the most difficult part is the twisting. And guys, let me tell you, that's completely untrue. It's completely false. There is no way this thing is built for any age. It was great fun to put together, and we'll explain that in a little bit. And the twisting, that was probably the easiest part. It looks like you only need a screwdriver to build this thing, but in fact, what you actually need is a screwdriver, pliers, scissors, measuring tape, tweezers, a candle, black marker, a cup of water, and your mitts. Okay, so you've got all your tools, you've sat down, you've opened up the book, and the first thing you actually need to do is measure and cut all of the piping to certain lengths and number them 1 to 5. And it was at this point that my 5-year-old son got bored and went off to go play Captain Toad on the Switch, and I just soldered on alone, as again, this is very clearly not aimed at kids. Anyway, you then begin to work your way through the very high quality wooden sheets and start to put them all together following the black and white instructions found in the book. And guys, from this point on, it was mostly awesome for someone of my age. The smell of the obviously laser cut burnt wood, slotting everything together with other pieces whilst listening to some records is without a doubt my idea of good downtime. Honestly, I don't have a lot of experience building these sort of things outside of big toy companies like Lego, but what I will say is that the instructions found here are nowhere near as easy to follow as something like Lego. Now, it was incredibly obvious to work all of this out yourself 95% of the time, but there were instances where I got so incredibly confused about what slot I needed to get out of the big sheets and what slot and which way I needed to put them all together. But with that said, as you do work your way through the building process, if you're anything like me, you will be absolutely gobsmacked at how insanely intelligent the person or the people behind this were to work all of this out. And more importantly, as you build it, you will get a better understanding as to how this thing actually works yourself. But from time to time you will accidentally put something the wrong way round, rub wax as lubrication to the wrong piece or the wrong side of that piece, or put it in a piece that looks remarkably like another piece. Again, this is mostly due to the hard to read instructions. But as you work your way through and you sort of start to understand how this all gets put together, it actually ends up being quite a lot of fun to work out. And again, whoever designed this, well done. The way everything just fits together perfectly snug is mind-blowing. So much trial and error must have been done when building this, and I'm still so incredibly impressed at however they went about doing it. Besides one tiny little mishap, where I had to forcibly push one piece of wood into a hole that was obviously too small for it to fit in, resulting in a crushed piece of wood on one of the panels. And no, as far as I can tell, this wasn't my fault, as it actually happened again on the second arm that I built as well. This is something that I know how to personally fix myself, but before I do make that hole a tiny bit bigger, I wanted to show you guys first. It's also worth noting that the pliers you need for this should not look like these. You need skinny pliers for the construction of the ARMPAL so that they can fit into tiny places. The most obvious example of this is when you're trying to pull the numbered pipes through certain holes and little tiny openings to connect them to little syringes. And guys, this is where the fun aspect of ARMPAL just flew out the window. I would not wish this process on anyone. It was painful. Trying to get these tiny little pipes through even smaller holes was incredibly tough to do. Making sure you connect valves onto the end of syringes was also quite literally painful, leaving my thumbs rather sore. And then pushing this pipe the entire way to the very back of these syringes was something that honestly I think is actually impossible unless you, I don't know, maybe slightly heat up and push them down that way. Thankfully, from my testing, having them only halfway seemed to do the trick, as I couldn't push these pipes any further up than this, mostly because of the small areas of space they give you at whatever stage you need to do it. Is this a common thing when building something like this? I don't know, because I've never built something like this, but these are the things I came up against when building the ARMPAL. Anyway, once you've done all that, you then need to refill that cup of water that you drank 4 hours ago and use it to fill all of these test tubes up. You do this by using the small amount of tubing you have left, pushing and sucking up water with even bigger syringes and that cup of water until each of the mechanical arm functions do what they need to do. At first, this was annoying to work out, as the instruction manual again was pretty hard to decipher. However, once you do work it out, it is actually quite exciting to fill them all up, removing every bubble that you can, like some over obsessive Finding Nemo extra. But once you've done that, you need to do it all again with the second ARMPAL. But by this point, you know, you've learned from your mistakes, you know how to do things a little bit better, and, you know, the whole thing is pretty much enjoyable. This is the final result. It may sound like I'm hating on this product, and let me just tell you now, guys, I'm not. This is obviously from a company that obviously hasn't got the history, the wealth, or the facilities of companies like Lego, for instance, and that shows. The fun I had whilst making this 100% outweighs the few negative things I would do differently, but saying that, I obviously wouldn't even know where to start with building or designing something like this in the first place, so still, you know, fair play to the designers. Honestly, I'm actually quite happy that I sort of had to learn not only how to build this, but the reason certain parts went certain ways and how the mechanics of the water system flow through each of the syringes. Unlike Lego, I don't ever see myself taking this apart to build it again. It would just simply be way too hard of a job to do, as certain pieces of wood were quite forcefully pushed together, which is a shame because, just like Lego, the majority of the fun for me is building the thing and working out how it all ties together. But, unlike Lego, now it's built, it actually kind of turns into a game. This is when I stopped recording and went downstairs to play the ARMPAL games with my wife. So, first things first, I built the first ARMPAL probably about a month ago, and the second one I built about a week ago. The second one is working fine, but the first one wasn't exactly moving quite as well as it was before. I then realised that a small pool of water was underneath, so I decided to refill it up. Again guys, this isn't easy, as you need to make sure that one syringe is pulled out as far as possible and the other end is pushed in as far as possible so that the correct amount of water is introduced. No matter what we did though, we just couldn't get that first ARMPAL to work as well as the newer built one. And after a good amount of trial and error, we realised that the valve on the end of one of the main syringes had actually cracked, and eventually it just snapped off. Now, to give ARMPAL its due, it does give a lot of spare parts, but sadly this big syringe was not one of the spare parts, and therefore I was unable to use the older ARMPAL in our 2-player games. I've got no idea how this happened. Honestly, I've actually used this thing quite a few times since originally making it, showing it off to people, letting them have a go, and you can even see it being used in my old Kickscammer news video. Perhaps I was too forceful when putting the valve on, but 1, how else are you supposed to put it on? And 2, it was fine for the last few weeks, but weirdly, not now. Unfortunately for the company, this has happened to me, a guy that's actually reviewing the thing. Honestly, the company do seem very reputable, and I'm sure they will send a replacement. They seem like a good bunch of people, but right now, This is where I'm at. I have one that works perfectly well and one that has one feature missing, making 2-player games, as of right now, something that we simply can't do. Besides all of that, we did take turns playing our own versions and making them 1-player games and had an absolute blast doing so. The ARMPAL comes with 3 different attachments, one for scooping, one that works in a sort of grabbing motion, and one that very satisfyingly picks up small metal objects. When everything comes together, the ARMPAL is great fun. The construction is mind-blowing. If you are anything like me, putting all of this together alone in your man cave is an experience that I will soon not forget. Sure, the instruction manual could be a little bit easier to use, you'll make the odd mistake, and you will go nuts trying to find out every little bubble that you can. My bubbles. But if you're into construction type stuff and you've got the patience to get everything working exactly right, then you are indeed the kind of person that will enjoy the ARMPAL. Will I play this thing much after this video? Honestly, not really, but at the same time, every year during the Christmas break, we have these big friends and family get-togethers where we set up games all around the house and garden, such as arcade games, recreations of fairground attractions, walk on the plank VR stuff, and all the money goes to cancer research. I can guarantee that the ARMPAL will indeed be a big hit at these social gatherings. And with that in mind, yes, we are the kind of family to use this for many, many years to come at these social get-togethers. And that is the end of our review. Obviously, I want to give a massive thanks to the ARMPAL team for sending this over. I know I've had a few issues with it, but overall, I did enjoy my experience with ARMPAL, and if you guys liked it, links can be found in the description.